the world of rock and roll, few names stand out like Mick Jagger's. From his rise as the iconic frontman of the Rolling Stones to becoming a living legend, Mick's journey is one that has spanned decades, countless musical milestones, and personal transformations. But now, well into his 80s, the once lively rock star faces a different set of challenges: health concerns, a changing world of music, and the complexities that come with age. So, how did the king of swagger end up here, with a career that has not only defined rock and roll but also shaped popular culture in ways few could have predicted? Mick Jagger's journey to superstardom began in a setting far removed from the chaotic, rebellious world of rock music. Born into a middle-class family in Dartford, Kent on July 26, 1943, Mick's father, Basil "Joe" Jagger, was a PE teacher, and his mother, Eva Mary Scutts, worked as a hairdresser and was involved in the Conservative Party. While Mick's family had no connection to the world of rock and roll, his early life did lay the groundwork for his later success. His family's middle-class background didn't predict a future of music stardom, yet Mick's passion for American blues and R&B music started early and would eventually lead him down a very different path. He picked up his first guitar at 14, and by his teenage years, he was collecting records from legendary blues artists such as Muddy Waters, Howlin Wolf, and Chuck Berry. These records would become the foundation for his musical identity, influencing the sound that would eventually define the Rolling Stones. Despite his family's hopes for him to follow a more conventional academic route, Mick was already showing signs of being a natural performer. Even as a child, he was the center of attention at family gatherings, captivating his relatives with his energetic personality and ability to entertain. Whether it was through imitating others, singing, or dancing, Mick found joy in performing and being the focal point of attention. He and his childhood friend Dick Taylor formed a band called Little Boy Blue and the Blue Boys, with Mick taking on the role of lead singer. Looking back on those early performances, Mick later reflected that they were instrumental in helping him develop the stage presence and confidence that would define his career. By the time Mick was 14, his passion for music had fully taken over. Though his family wanted him to pursue academics, Mick found a way to secretly perform with local bands, hiding his musical activities from his parents. "I wouldn't tell my parents what I was doing," he once admitted, acknowledging that this was his first step toward breaking away from the path his family had envisioned for him. Mick was already charting his own course, and it would only be a matter of time before that course led him to the global stage. In 1960, Mick was accepted into the prestigious London School of Economics, and his parents were thrilled, seeing it as a step toward a stable future. He commuted to the school from his home, balancing his academic studies with his growing musical ambitions. Yet even as he worked toward a degree, music was still calling to him. Around this time, Mick reconnected with Keith Richards, a childhood friend from Dartford. Their partnership would go on to become one of the most famous and influential in rock history. Together, they would write some of the most iconic songs ever created, including Jumping Jack Flash and I Can't Get No Satisfaction. The pivotal moment in their collaboration came when they unexpectedly crossed paths again at Dartford train station. Although they had attended the same primary school, they hadn't been close. It wasn't until they met again as young adults that their shared love of blues music reignited their friendship. Keith Richards was carrying a couple of blues records under his arm, which caught Mick's attention and sparked a conversation. What followed was an immediate bond over their mutual love for American blues music, setting the stage for the legendary musical collaboration that would define the Rolling Stones for decades to come. In his autobiography, Keith Richards recalled the exact moment when he saw Mick at the station, noting that Mick's enthusiasm for blues music was immediately apparent. Keith was struck by Mick's passion and his vocal ability, even calling him the greatest R&B singer this side of the Atlantic in a letter to his Aunt Patty. This was no casual compliment. Keith's recognition of Mick's talent was genuine and would prove to be the beginning of a musical partnership that would change rock music forever. At the time, Mick was still on a more conventional academic path, studying finance at the London School of Economics as his family hoped. But the pull of music was irresistible. As Mick and Keith began to play together more frequently, the world of finance and accounting became less relevant to Mick's future. Soon, the two were playing gigs together and writing music, and Mick found it increasingly difficult to balance his academic obligations with his musical ambitions. Eventually, Mick made the bold decision to leave behind the career his family had envisioned for him and pursue his passion for music full-time. This was a pivotal moment, one that not only changed Mick's life but also had a profound impact on the history of rock and roll. Mick Jagger's rise to fame was marked by both an embrace of his natural talent and a relentless pursuit of artistic expression. From his early days performing for family members to becoming the frontman of one of the greatest rock bands in history, Mick's journey was one of discovery and transformation. As he fully embraced his role as a musician, he left behind the conventional path his family had hoped for him, stepping into a new world that was chaotic, unpredictable, and full of opportunities. That decision would ultimately define Mick Jagger's legacy, making him not only an iconic figure in rock music, but also a living testament to the power of following one's passion, no matter the obstacles that stand in the way. Mick's journey from a middle-class upbringing to one of the most iconic figures in rock is a testament to his unwavering dedication. His rise to fame wasn't the typical route, filled with pivotal moments and daring choices that would define his future with the Rolling Stones. In the early days, the band's schedule was pretty light. Mick humorously mentioned to Rolling Stone that they only had about 1 gig a month at the start. This gave him time to balance his schoolwork with his growing love for music, but also meant that they struggled to land regular shows. This quiet period turned out to be important for Mick, allowing him to hone his performance skills and think seriously about his future. Despite the academic path his family envisioned, Mick was drawn deeper into music and his school life began to slip. By October 1961, Mick was still seen as a bright student, though his focus was clearly shifting. He even started worrying about his math skills. As his passion for music grew, attending early morning classes after a late-night gig became impossible. So began Mick's academic downfall. When he took his exams in June 1962, he earned straight C's. It was clear that his heart was no longer in academics. He even returned to college for a bit in the next academic year, took a library job to hedge his bets. But ultimately, Mick made the decision to drop out for good when the Rolling Stones secured their first recording deal in May 1963. His father was furious, but Mick had no regrets, calling his time at university dull and unfulfilling. Mick admitted that it wasn't easy to walk away from education, especially with his parents strongly opposing the idea. In fact, his father would have probably been less upset if Mick had chosen to join the army instead of pursuing a music career. But Mick's frustration with school only made the idea of chasing his musical dreams more appealing, even if it meant risking an uncertain future. Later on, Mick even reflected that despite how foolish it seemed at the time, he knew pursuing music was the right choice for him. Though Mick had no major regrets about his career in music years after dropping out, he did express a curiosity about what other paths he could have taken. In a BBC interview, he surprised many by admitting he'd once thought about becoming a journalist. It was an unexpected confession, but it showed how Mick's intellectual curiosity never fully went away. Even as he became one of rock's biggest stars, Mick Jagger's interests went beyond just music. In a surprising interview, the Rolling Stones legend admitted that he thought journalism would have been more intellectually stimulating than his career as a rock singer. While he clearly loved the impact and satisfaction he got from music, he also felt that being a rock singer didn't fully challenge him intellectually. According to Mick, being a rock star is slightly intellectually undemanding. This honest reflection shows that Jagger was aware of the compromises he made and his constant search for meaning within the path he chose. In the early days, the Rolling Stones were known more for covering popular songs than for their own original music. They weren't initially famous for their songwriting, but they got a significant boost from none other than the Beatles. One of their first big hits, "I Want to Be Your Man," was actually written by John Lennon and Paul McCartney. The story behind how this song ended up in the Rolling Stones' repertoire is a fascinating chapter in rock history. In a 1968 interview, Mick Jagger recalled how the Beatles approached them with the song. Lennon and McCartney saw it as a commercial track that could appeal to a wide audience, and in 1963 they handed it over to the Rolling Stones, who were still a relatively unknown blues band from London. The exchange happened after a chance meeting between the two band's songwriters. According to music historian Bill Janowitz, the Rolling Stones manager Andrew Oldham bumped into Lennon and McCartney outside a cab and dragged them into the studio to meet his band. After chatting, the topic of the Stones not having any original material came up, and McCartney mentioned the song. It was the perfect opportunity, and Mick and Keith Richards gave it a shot. Mick remembers the encounter vividly. The Beatles were known for their persuasive style and really pushed the song, calling it a great one. The track, which Mick thought was pretty commercial, was exactly what the Stones were looking for at that time. They decided to put their unique spin on it, incorporating influences from their blues heroes like Elmore James. Mick described the recording as raw and unpolished, completely crackers, but it became a hit, especially in their live shows. Despite the quirky production and lack of a formal producer, the song resonated with audiences and helped the band gain a foothold in the music world. John Lennon, however, wasn't impressed with "I Want to Be Your Man." He openly referred to it as a throwaway, a comment that reflected his dismissive attitude toward the track. Lennon's words suggested that, in his view, the song was not worth much, and he made it clear that the only two recorded versions of the song were by Ringo Starr and the Rolling Stones. This seemed to imply that the Beatles, despite being the primary creators of the song, didn't think it was worthy of anything more than a simple, unremarkable composition. Even though Lennon's words were harsh, the song became a pivotal moment in the Rolling Stones' rise to stardom, and its impact on their career cannot be understated. Rolling Stones bassist Bill Wyman came to the defense of the band's version of "I Want to Be Your Man," emphasizing that they were able to learn the song quickly because of its straightforward structure. However, rather than simply covering it as it was, the Stones infused it with their own unique style, making it distinctly their own. Brian Jones, in particular, played a significant role in shaping the song's sound, contributing his slide guitar work that gave the track a raw, bluesy edge. The Rolling Stones' version of "I Want to Be Your Man" had a much grittier, Elmore James-inspired feel compared to the Beatles' more polished original. The transformation was not just a testament to their ability to reinterpret material, but also marked a key point in their development as a band with a distinctive sound. It solidified their reputation as a powerful force in rock music, capable of taking material from their contemporaries and making it their own. The decision to reimagine the song, instead of merely covering it, proved to be an important turning point for the Rolling Stones. This approach helped set them apart from many other bands of the time, showing that they were not just imitators, but innovative musicians who could take influence and craft something new and unique. "I Want to Be Your Man" was more than just a hit. It was a defining moment for the band, signaling their arrival as a dominant force in the British music scene and setting the stage for Mick Jagger and Keith Richards' songwriting partnership to evolve in the years that followed. The success of "I Want to Be Your Man" also had broader significance, reflecting the complex and often misunderstood dynamic between the Rolling Stones and the Beatles. Despite the media's constant push to frame them as rivals, the relationship between the two bands was far more nuanced, characterized by a blend of competition and mutual respect. On one hand, the press loved to pit the two bands against each other, creating narratives around their supposed rivalry. The Beatles, seen as the intellectuals and the more wholesome band, were often contrasted with the Rolling Stones, who were framed as the rebellious, edgy alternative. This rivalry fueled the media for years, but behind the scenes, the two groups maintained a surprisingly supportive relationship. This dynamic was made clear many years later, when Mick Jagger inducted the Beatles into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. In his speech, Jagger acknowledged the profound impact that Lennon and McCartney's innovative songwriting had on him and Keith Richards, helping to shape their own approach to writing music. Jagger's comments showed that despite the public rivalry, both bands shared a deep appreciation for each other's work. The Beatles bands also had moments of collaboration on their respective albums. Jagger and Richards made guest appearances on Beatles tracks, and in return, Lennon and McCartney contributed to the Rolling Stones' Satanic Majesties album. Additionally, the two bands famously performed together during a television broadcast of All You Need Is Love, further cementing the idea that their rivalry was not as antagonistic as the media often made it out to be. These subtle collaborations and gestures of camaraderie between the Rolling Stones and the Beatles demonstrated that despite being portrayed by the media as bitter rivals, the two bands shared a deep mutual respect. Their relationship was a unique mix of fierce competition and genuine collaboration, with each group pushing the other to new creative heights. The rivalry between the Stones and the Beatles wasn't just about record sales or who could dominate the charts, but it also shaped the direction of popular music during the 1960s and beyond. The impact of their dynamic on the cultural landscape is undeniable, as both bands left an indelible mark on the history of rock music, constantly inspiring one another and setting new standards for artistic achievement. Over the years, the rivalry between the two bands softened, evolving from intense competition to more playful and lighthearted banter. Both bands have spoken highly of each other in interviews, acknowledging each other's contributions to the music world. This mutual admiration shows that while their rivalry was a key part of the Rolling Stones' rise to fame, it did not hinder the respect they held for their counterparts in the Beatles. In fact, over time, both groups began to celebrate the other's accomplishments, reinforcing the idea that their rivalry had always been more of a media construct than an actual conflict. As Mick Jagger and Keith Richards started to write more original songs, their manager, Andrew Oldham, recognized the immense potential of the duo, but knew they needed a bit of motivation. According to Marianne Faithfull's biography, Oldham took bold action to encourage the pair to create new material. He locked Jagger and Richards in a kitchen overnight, telling them not to come out until they had written a song. This intense, pressure-filled situation turned out to be a key turning point for the band. The confined space forced the two to confront their artistic limitations and think outside the box. The song they wrote that night, which ended up being a hit for Marianne Faithfull, showed not only their songwriting potential but also their growing versatility as musicians. This marked the beginning of the Rolling Stones' shift toward writing more complex and original music. Mick and Keith's shift away from their usual musical style signaled an important evolution in their songwriting journey. Richards later reflected that this move was a natural progression, one that allowed them to expand their creative range beyond the boundaries of the Stones' established sound. It was during this period of exploration that they created some of their most iconic songs, including I Can't Get No Satisfaction, a track that would solidify their place in rock history. With this breakthrough, the Rolling Stones found their rhythm, and their reputation as one of the most innovative and influential rock bands of all time began to take shape. Their songs, like Paint It Black, continued to push boundaries and expand their musical horizons, while the band's leadership gradually shifted from Brian Jones to Mick Jagger and Keith Richards. The two had become the driving creative forces behind the band, with their songwriting talents now at the forefront. However, as the 1960s wore on, the band's success came hand in hand with excess and indulgence, leading them to embody the bad boys of rock and roll. By 1967, the Rolling Stones were deeply entrenched in the counterculture movement, and their lifestyle mirrored the chaos and rebellion of the era. Their vices, particularly drugs, began to take a toll on the band, with members like Jagger, Richards, and Jones facing legal issues related to substance abuse. In 1967, all three were charged with drug possession, a legal setback that mirrored the increasingly erratic behavior of the band. But the troubles for Brian Jones extended beyond drugs. His mental health began to deteriorate, exacerbated by his drug use, and his erratic behavior started to make it difficult for the band to continue working with him. In 1969, the tensions came to a head, and Brian Jones was effectively ousted from the band. Just weeks later, Jones tragically drowned in his swimming pool, a devastating loss for the band and for rock music as a whole. His death marked a pivotal moment in the band's history, forcing the Rolling Stones to continue without one of their founding members. Jones's departure not only left a huge void in the band, but also changed the dynamic of the group forever. The loss deepened the weight of their legacy, and the Rolling Stones were forced to adapt, finding a new balance as they moved forward. As the Rolling Stones continued to grow in fame, their concerts became legendary for drawing in a passionate counterculture audience. The rebellious spirit of the band attracted fans who mirrored their desire to break societal norms. However, the band's performances were often charged with tension and, at times, violence. Their concerts were known to spark riots, with fans sometimes clashing with the police or creating chaos in the crowd. The Stones' live shows became a symbol of youthful rebellion, and the band's attitude only heightened their notoriety. Mick Jagger's infamous Nazi salute during a 1969 performance added fuel to the media frenzy, painting the Rolling Stones as even more dangerous and controversial. This incident further cemented the band's reputation as the anti-establishment, rebellious voice of a generation. Despite, or perhaps because of, the controversy surrounding them, the Rolling Stones never lost their place in the spotlight. Their popularity ebbed and flowed over the decades, but they remained an enduring presence in rock music. They continued to tour, record, and influence generations of musicians long into their 60s and 70s. Even as they aged, the Rolling Stones maintained their legendary status, proving that their impact on rock music was timeless. Their ability to evolve and stay relevant through decades of changing musical trends further solidified their place as one of the greatest bands in history. Even today, the Rolling Stones remain a force in the music world. Their tours continue to draw millions of fans, and their records continue to sell. The band's ability to adapt while maintaining their distinctive sound and style is a testament to their resilience and enduring influence. The legacy of the Rolling Stones, with their ever-evolving creativity and unapologetic rock and roll attitude, will continue to inspire future generations of musicians and fans for years to come. In 2003, Mick Jagger's knighthood, awarded by Queen Elizabeth II, was a milestone that sparked debate, especially among his bandmates. Richards, in particular, expressed his discontent, feeling that the anti-establishment ethos the Stones had long embodied was undermined by Jagger's new title. Public outcry also followed as critics questioned the appropriateness of honoring a former British tax exile. Yet, despite the controversy, Jagger's knighthood did little to diminish his legacy or affect the band's continued success. The Rolling Stones remained a symbol of rock and roll defiance, even as Jagger's knightly status added a layer of irony to their rebellious image. Over the years, Mick Jagger's wealth has grown to extraordinary levels. As of 2024, his net worth is estimated at $500 million, a testament to his career longevity and his sharp business sense. His wealth is also reflected in his luxurious real estate portfolio, which is valued at an impressive $250 million. Jagger's real estate holdings include an array of high-end properties in some of the world's most desirable locations. He owns homes in New York, London, Mustique, and the south of France, among others. One of his most notable assets is a beachfront compound on the private island of Mustique, which he rents for up to $50,000 per week. This stunning estate, known as Star Groves, is a 7-pavilion complex designed with a Japanese-inspired theme. It boasts numerous amenities, including a swimming pool, fitness room, media room, and even a children's cottage, making it a luxurious sanctuary for family and guests. In addition to the Mustique property, Jagger owns a second home on the island within a gated country club, commanding a staggering rental rate of $111,000 per week. He also owns the historic Hampshire Mansion, which the Rolling Stones famously used as a recording venue in the 1970s. After selling it for a profit, Jagger's most famous property is the Grade II listed mansion, Down House, in Richmond. Dating back to 1780, this Georgian beauty overlooks the River Thames and remains one of his most iconic homes. Its location, combined with the rich history and architectural detail, makes it a valuable asset in Jagger's real estate portfolio. Jagger's Down House in Richmond is a remarkable property. The house spans 4 stories, including a basement with bay windows on either side. Its grand, historic feel is accentuated by original features like modillion cornices and balustrading, which give it an air of classic elegance. Mick Jagger purchased the home in the early 1990s, where he lived with his longtime partner, Jerry Hall. After their separation, Jerry continued to live in the property while Jagger moved to a flat next door. Today, the house is estimated to be worth around $17 million, reflecting its prime location and timeless appeal. Jagger's luxurious lifestyle extends beyond his homes into his love of fine automobiles. His car collection is as iconic as his music, featuring a mix of classic and modern luxury vehicles. Among his prized possessions is a 1969 Morgan Plus 8, a vintage car that epitomizes elegance and craftsmanship, valued at around $48,000. He also owns a BMW F700 GS motorcycle, blending practicality with sleek design, priced at approximately $10,000. Jagger's taste for luxury is further exemplified by his ownership of a Mercedes S550, valued at $110,000, a car known for its performance, comfort, and refinement. Another significant addition to his collection is a Rolls-Royce Silver Cloud 3 from the 1960s, valued at around $130,000, which reflects the timeless allure of luxury vehicles. Additionally, he owns a 1966 Aston Martin DB6, which can fetch up to $800,000 today, showcasing his appreciation for high-performance classics. Perhaps the most coveted vehicle in Jagger's collection is his Ferrari 288 GTO, which he personally purchased in the 1980s. With only 272 units ever produced, this rare car now holds a value of around $3 million, symbolizing Jagger's commitment to owning only the best and most exclusive vehicles. Jagger's lavish lifestyle extends to private aviation as well. Over the years, the Rolling Stones have used various aircraft for their global tours, including a Boeing 737. Eventually, the band upgraded to a Boeing 767, which was custom painted with their logo, cementing their rock and roll persona. For privacy and convenience, Jagger now uses chartered flights, with each hour of flight costing around $88,000, a further indicator of his extraordinary wealth and lifestyle. His jet-setting lifestyle, filled with luxury cars, private jets, and multi-million-dollar homes, is a reflection of the success and opulence that have followed him throughout his remarkable career. However, Jagger's life has not been without its struggles, particularly in his relationships. As a rock star, Jagger's relationships were often short-lived, with the media frequently focusing on his personal life. He has had 8 children from different relationships. His first child, Karis Jagger, was born to Marcia Hunt. His second child, Jade Jagger, is the daughter of Bianca Jagger. Jagger had 4 more children with Jerry Hall: Elizabeth, James, Georgia May, and Gabriel. Despite his success and wealth, Jagger's relationships have been challenging, adding a layer of complexity to his otherwise glamorous lifestyle. Mick Jagger's family life continues to be complex, especially with 8 children from various relationships. His 7th child, Lucas, was born to Brazilian model Luciana Gimenez, while his youngest, Deo, was born to ballet dancer Melanie Hamrick. Jagger has faced substantial financial commitments, including alimony payments and child support. For instance, Lucas received $177,000 in monthly child support until he turned 18 and was given a $2 million apartment in New York, reflecting Jagger's dedication to his children's well-being. Parenting at his age, with children ranging from 52 to just 6, presents unique challenges. The generational gaps between his eldest and youngest children make it difficult to relate to their diverse needs and experiences. His older children are navigating adulthood, while his younger ones are still in their formative years, making it emotionally and logistically taxing to balance their needs. Raising young children, especially at 81, requires considerable energy, which Jagger doesn't have in the same abundance as when his older children were young. Fortunately, his young wife helps with the demands of parenting. A major concern for Jagger is his legacy and future planning. With such a broad age range among his children, ensuring their financial and emotional needs are met can be challenging. His older children are more independent, while his youngest require long-term planning. In a surprising revelation, Jagger stated that he doesn't plan to leave a huge inheritance for his children, especially regarding his $500 million music catalog. He expressed in an interview that his children don't need that much money to live well, which shocked many, including his kids. This decision has raised questions about whether Jagger simply wants his children to earn their own money, or whether he's trying to avoid conflicts within his complex family dynamics. Jagger's age also comes with health concerns. In April 2019, he underwent heart valve replacement surgery, a significant health scare at 75. Fortunately, the surgery was non-invasive, leading to a faster recovery than traditional open-heart surgery would have allowed. Despite the health scare, Jagger returned to performing soon after, though the procedure delayed the Rolling Stones' North American tour. The rapid recovery, thanks to modern medical advancements, showed Jagger's resilience, but the risks of performing at his age have led some fans to worry about his well-being, questioning if he should spend more time resting instead of touring.